Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, and we are so excited to be kicking off season two. This is our first episode of season two. We can't wait for 2022 and what it brings our podcast. But I will tell you one thing, we're starting off with a heck of a coach. And for the first time on the show, we actually have a captain of a team along with their coach. So we're going to be talking about the program a little bit over the last few years and talk to each guest a little bit individually. So we're super excited about that. From Pope Francis Prep, we have head coach Chris Connors and Captain Morgan Peritz joining us today. So, guys, welcome to Beyond Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Anthony. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So I know your season's kind of been crazy, Coach. Just talking to you a little bit about that on the phone. We did a little bit of pre-phone. But before we get there, just tell a little bit of everybody about Chris Connors, who you are. I know you used to coach up in the North Shore area, and now you're literally coaching on the other side of the state of Massachusetts. So I just want to hear a little bit about the journey of who you are and where you've got to at this point.
Sure. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I grew up out in Saugus, spent my whole life out there and moved out to Western Mass 10 years ago. You know, obviously being from Saugus, it's definitely a hockey town, rich in pride and tradition for its hockey program. So I was fortunate enough to play under legendary coach Chris Serino, and coached under was an assistant under two great coaches, Louis Finicaro and Jimmy Quinlan, and fortunate enough to become the head coach at Saugus back in 2005, and was there for a good 6 years. Enjoyed my time there, enjoyed the kids that I coached, and Saugus was my hometown. So there was a lot of pride and a lot of tradition. And my journeys brought me out to Western Massachusetts. Ironically, my wife is from Agawam, also comes from a hockey family. So she definitely appreciates and understands what I do. Little, has patience with me during the season, but yeah. So I about 2 years ago, the opportunity presented itself. I was coaching my younger daughter's team, and it was mentioned that Pope Francis was going to implement a girls' hockey program. So the headmaster at the time, Dr. Harrington, used to see me at a lot of the boys' games over the years. And one day he posed the question, I see you at all these games, do you have a relative on the team? And we started talking, told him my background. And he said, well, we're going to be starting a program. Any interest? So I thought about it, talked about it with my wife, and then when the opportunity presented itself, I was taken back. I went in, for the interview process up against some qualified candidates, and thought it over, and definitely I'm grateful that I accepted the job, coaching a great group of girls, and I'm coaching. Just so impressed with the school itself, and just the rich tradition at Pope Francis, not only on the boys' side, but a supportive faculty and a supportive athletic department.
Yeah, it was really cool, like looking at your social media. We did a funny spoof video. Long story short, I emceed an event and I forgot to announce the mayor, the most important person in the room. So there was a little newspaper article out. So we did a press conference, and I just kept saying, I'm on the Pope Francis Prep. I'm on the Pope Francis Prep, because we were supposed to cover you guys last night, but obviously we'll talk about that. COVID kind of had a lot to kind of derail that. But you were a spectator of the games at the boys' games, and you were just watching as a fan. And that's, the school approached you because they obviously knew your background in coaching and hockey, and seeing that you were there, understanding the student body, the athletes, seeing what the program's like. And yeah, they get an opportunity to now create that on the other side is awesome. So yeah, totally cool story there, Coach. When we talked on the phone, I really wanted to get it out there because I thought, it's a great story. So Morgan, what I found really interesting about you is, I used to be a high school football coach, and my former quarterback's kid, Paul Hammond, he traveled from Brockton, Massachusetts to Arlington, Massachusetts every single day. And that was about an hour to an hour and 15-minute commute. I know you live in Palmer, Mass. Now, I had a college roommate who lived in Palmer, Mass, which is funny that I heard that. I was like, wow, I haven't heard Palmer, Mass in a long time, but that's about a 45-minute commute for you in the morning to attend school. And then on top of that, have hockey practice, and then be expected to be a student athlete, and doing that over and over and over again. So just for a lot of young athletes out there, talk about your commitment of choosing to go to a school that's a lot further away from you, and the effort that you put into it maybe on a daily basis.
Yeah, my like decision to go to Pope Francis, it really honestly, it just like I just made the decision about like a month before school started my junior year. Like it wasn't ever something that I talked about like with my family before. I had like family members. I had like two cousins that went to, well, it was Cathedral and then turned into Pope Francis. So I had like grew up watching them play hockey there. And like I knew the school, but it wasn't until like a month before my junior year started that we like kind of talked about it, and we're like, oh, like maybe like we knew they were starting a girls team, and I was planning on playing for the girls team just co-opt at Palmer High. So I was planning on staying at Palmer High and just playing for them that way. But then my family was kind of just like, why not maybe just like push my education a little bit more? So a big part of it was like education. They knew it was a very good school because my cousins went there, and they kind of just wanted to see me like be challenged a little bit. Like I love my high school, Palmer High School, but I think they just wanted to see me kind of be pushed a little bit more, and I agreed. And I think I knew it was going to be a big social change, like going into a new school like junior year, like, but once I got there, like it took a little bit definitely to get like acclimated,
Right,
but
right.
yeah, it was very definitely very different compared to public school. But after I got like once hockey started is really once I kind of like found my groove. Like hockey in a weird way, like it sounds stupid, but it kind of like saved me at Pope Francis because it definitely was so different than public school. But then I started to make friends and I really like fell in love with the school kind of through the hockey team.
Yeah.
And on like the commute part, at first it was like a little bit like driving there and driving back, like it's like 40 minutes, like you said. The way there is not that bad, but the way home, like when I just want to
Yeah.
be home, it's like definitely a little rough. But I think just like kind of staying like motivated, like really through hockey kind of just pushes me. Like it's I know it's like for a bigger reason, especially because I played on a boys team at my old school, and I knew that playing for a girls team would give me a lot more opportunities in the future.
That's a great, and it's a mature, and your answer is very mature. So what time does school start? Like in the morning?
7:50. So I have to leave. I normally leave at like 7, like 7:10 if I'm pushing it. If that's pushing a little
Yeah,
bit
that's
out.
like, yeah,
Like
yeah. Hoping you find a good
yeah.
parking spot and everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
7 is like my what I aim for, which is really weird because like all my friends that like I play hockey with and go there, they all live like 20 minutes away max. Like it's like
Yeah.
most of them like one of them lives like 2 minutes down the road from the school. So like it's so different. Like they wake up at like 7 the latest, and that's like when I have to like be out of the house. So
Yeah.
it's like even all the kids like outside of hockey that go there, like I know a couple kids that drive as far as me, but like a lot of them, it's just like it's not. It's like a 20-minute ride for them or less. So it's definitely a little different.
Yeah, I think I thought it was so great, and I think it was an important thing to talk about because, like, I had a quarterback, and when I talked about him, that was the one thing. It's like, how do you not want to have someone like this leading your program when they're putting that discipline and that consistency together every single day as a part of their life to be able to then put that effort and leadership and everything else into a program. So tip of the cap to you. I think that that's pretty amazing for a kid your age and so on and so forth. So coach, back to you for 1 second. Most coaches I talk to, like everyone's coached through a pandemic, and I've had a lot of coaches on here over the last year and a half that have talked about that. But your story is a little more interesting because not only are you coaching during a pandemic, you're starting a program during a pandemic. And for most coaches, they at least know what they have coming in and they understand, where they're at class wise and what they have for positions and everything else. You really had no idea. So I'm just curious, just as like a regular average Joe here, how did you kind of put a program together, really not knowing what you were going to have day one, skill level, numbers, everything?
It was definitely challenging to say the least. Not only starting a program from inception, planning games, practices, booking ice, but just knowing where the girls were coming from. I knew that there was a solid nucleus within Pope Francis, and I knew that we would be co-oping with local schools to basically get the program up and running. But I didn't realize that girls were coming as far west from Pittsfield, which is a good hour, or even out here in Palmer. So, during a pandemic was challenging enough, but to get all these girls to intermingle and bond and play as a team was definitely challenging. Not to mention throw in the systems that we were looking to play and the different COVID protocols and something so minute as ordering uniforms, guesstimating on the sizes because last year the girls couldn't be present in one room due to COVID. So with the masks, but at the end of the day, I give our girls, a ton of credit. I mean, last year, and I keep telling this story on various interviews, but last year, one of, a story that I go back on is, it was a few days before Christmas, right? We're practicing up at Holyoke Arena and it's spitting snow out. It's freezing cold. There were no locker rooms. The girls, there were, no team bonding, no pasta dinners. And I look, and as a coach, I'm walking into the rink. It's freezing out. Like I'm talking 20 degrees, snowing, and the girls are out in the parking lot just laughing, joking, getting dressed. That's how much drive and how much commitment they have. And that's, that was also a challenging aspect for me. For years, I had coached boys. I have a daughter that's younger, but I've never coached teenage girls. So there's different personalities that come into play. I mean, I knew I could do it. I knew that I would put together a system and lay the building blocks for the culture of the program. But again, you have to get complete buy-in from the girls on the team to believe that, to make them believe in the cause and make them believe in the program that you're putting together. And every single girl on our team, I'll tell you, it's been the best 2 years, hands down, coaching in my journey, and all those years of coaching boys high school hockey. And a big credit and kudos goes to, Morgan and the rest of our girls in our program.
Yeah, and I think that's so challenging because obviously you hit upon it, like having a love and drive to play hockey and to play for a team, to go through what people are going through, getting changed in their cars, not really getting to have maybe that like team talk or that pep, speech that comes before a game that, you try to get them going, because week to week, day to day, game to game, everything was changing, not only in that season, but obviously what you guys are kind of still going through now, which a lot of people didn't even think would be kind of that situation. But let's get into a little bit of like a lighter side of your team. So I want to try a part of the show here that I talked to the coach and the player, just to kind of hear about your thoughts about like the team culture, like who you are as a program, your identity, not necessarily on the ice, but like in the locker room. I mean, having a great locker room is always important, ingredient to a successful team. So Morgan, I'll start with you. Like, who are some of the funny people in the locker room? Who are some of the people that, are just really good leaders, quiet, do what they're supposed to? I mean, let's hear about the squad a little bit.
I think definitely our loudest personality would definitely be Lauren Crocker, and she's one of our seniors. She is like the one that's always in the locker room, like kind of like just pumped up, like she is dancing, she's screaming to the music, while like some of our other like players, like they're not too loud, not too like one of our defensemen, Lila. She is the sweetest person I think I've ever met, but she definitely just sits there and like everyone, like all the quiet ones, will just be looking at Lauren like what are you doing? Like she's just like getting excited, getting hyped for the game. And then like a lot of like our sophomores, like Grace Sands and Lily Hayes, like they'll join in with like Lauren too. Like they definitely have like big personalities. And then I think like one of our like funniest players that doesn't try to be at all like one of those people that is just like whatever they do is hilarious and they don't even mean to, is Mia Alfonso. She's another one of our seniors, and she is just like, she doesn't even mean to do anything, and I think she's like one of the funniest people like in the locker room, like and on the ice. Like on the ice she'll be like, we'll like explain a whole drill and then she'll be like, Mo, what are we doing? Or in the locker room she'll be like, wait, what they say? Like it's so funny.
That's great. And I think it's important. Like I said, a recipe of any successful team is having a good locker room. I mean, coach, how would you define your team's locker room as far as the culture goes and how they get along with one another and maybe the product that it relates to on the ice?
They're a cast of characters. They definitely are. Touching on what Morgan said, funny story. They, being from Boston, you can appreciate it, Anthony. They, everything I say, I know that deep down inside, they're in there like basically mocking me when I leave the locker room. Like, what did he just say? So, and last year it was funny. They put together a team picture with all my Boston slang, all my Boston quotes. And it seems like it evolves like every single day, because they're like, Coach, where do you pull this stuff from? So I appreciate that. As you said, you have to have a tight, close-knit locker room in a positive culture. And they've been receptive to that from day one. we know when it's time to work hard. And they know when I step on the ice, I'm a completely different person. But when I'm off the ice, I'm like a big kid. I can relate. And one thing I pride myself on is my communication skills. Listening is important because each and every single day there's different things going on in all of our student athletes' lives. So, and usually I have a good intuition. I have a good read on things. So, it's very important that, outside of the day-to-day activities of hockey, you basically you're talking to them about school, how things are going in their day-to-day life as well.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, we preach it's a team-oriented, family-first culture. And every girl that comes into our program this year has understood that. And I think, as I said, our seniors, especially our captain, she's done a good job in setting the communication and setting the tone with all of our new incoming players.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference. Like last year, like we all kind of came in like on the same level. Like we didn't have any like seniors, but like there was like 4 of us juniors that are now seniors. But we all like were like older than them, but like we all like hadn't like been on the team. Like we had no like standing like in a weird way like above like the freshmen. Like even though we were older than them, like it's not like we had been on the team and like knew the culture and everything. Like there's no team to know. Like it was just that was definitely really weird. Like coming from like a boys team where it's very like you listen to the seniors, like they're like you listen to the captain, like the freshmen, like you better be picking up the pucks, like stuff like that. It definitely was like this year it's a lot more like I guess like normal in the sense like we have like freshmen that like have never experienced like high school hockey, or like we have one other group of girls that like have actually at least for like a year experienced like somewhat what it's like. But I think it's just I think our like connection has just grown a lot more this year kind of because of it, especially with the girls that were on the team last year. Like we've all obviously like taken in the freshmen that are here and some of the transfers. Like there's like 2 sophomore transfers. Two, yeah, sophomore transfers. And so like they've never like experienced like our group of like 17 girls. We only had 17 girls last year. That's it, compared to like 30 something now. So I think it's just like we definitely come a lot more connected, and I think it's a lot to do with like our culture, like in the locker room, like you said. Like it's just like stuff like off the ice that kind of connects us a lot more.
Yeah, and that's it, especially being a head coach. I mean, I could go back to years of looking at records, and I could easily say the years that there wasn't a lot of success, would be like, yeah, tough locker room, not a great locker room, not a together locker room. And that means something, when again, I had a 15-year window of looking at that, and it was pretty accurate, to see when you have a good locker room, even when things aren't going your way or going great, it's going to turn around because the locker room's there. Everyone's still together. You could be losing close games, tight games, games that like fluky things happen, and it's like, we're there, we're fighting, we're tough, we'll keep going. So when you have that type of locker room to help you lead in that direction, it is really nice. Now, Coach, you mentioned your practice style. So Morgan, I'm going to ask you one word to describe Coach's style at practice.
Like on the ice?
On the ice.
One word. I would say maybe like very like upbeat. Like it's always very like go go go. Like it's very like high intensity in every way. Whether it's like high like energy, like he wants us to be like kind of lighthearted like some days, like not be so hard on ourselves, or like high energy, like we need to kind of get our butts moving a little bit. It's definitely just very like upbeat. Like it's never like kind of like a low like tone. Like and if it is, he always definitely like pumps it back up. Like he definitely always wants us going like as hard as we can, or like not being, and at the same time not being like too hard on ourselves, especially after like we've had a couple like 1-point losses recently, which can really get down on us, especially when we're like playing our hearts out. But he
But
definitely
you got a good
us.
locker room. You got a good
Yeah,
locker room.
exactly. We all know that like it's gonna turn around, and it's just gonna take like and like constantly like upbeat practices to kind of switch that.
So, Coach, you hear upbeat. Obviously, talk about what goes into your practice planning and that upbeat. I mean, how accurate is Morgan there as far as how you view practice and what you see practices for your program?
Yeah, she's definitely hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's my personality. Like I'm always just go, 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 go. I try to like simulate game situations, which, I use the term at practice too. It's organized chaos. Like we go from one drill to the other. And a lot of times it correlates to the type of game that we're playing or the game that we played before. For instance, we lost a couple close games. So this past week, we've been focusing on real attention to detail, getting to the traffic area, a lot of rebounds, a lot of winning one-on-one battles. So, and it definitely paid dividends last game. And we have another rivalry game on Thursday night against the same team that we just lost to by 1 goal. So we'll make some adjustments. I've watched, repeatedly the game film. I know Morgan has, and our girls are so committed that they've done the same. And we'll really ramp it up this week at practice. But on the same token, as you said, it's very important. I mean, take, for instance, the Bruins when they won the Stanley Cup. They were down 3 to the Montreal Canadiens. Right. Claude Julien took them up to Vermont. They got away from hockey for a little bit, practice. For instance, tomorrow night, we're doing a team bonding bowling night away from the rink. We got back to the rink yesterday just to bring everybody together, just to address the tough loss the night before. And we'll go hard for 2 nights. And the girls know what to expect, and I know what to expect from them. They know that when I step on the ice, I'm all business. And they know that they got to give 100% effort. That's the culture, and that's what we require as a coaching staff.
Yeah, no, and I love it. I always like to hear like the player's perspective and then the coach to see like how close they are, in touch. And you guys seem like, I think it's important for attention span. I think it's important for, wanting to learn and wanting to move. If you're sitting there and talking too much in practice and you're not go, then practice can get stale, legs can get slow and tired, and then you don't kind of get the most you can out of your squad. So Morgan, let me jump back to you here. College recruitment. I know obviously talking to coach a little bit, you're looking to play at that next level. And I have a lot of high school kids that listen to this, a lot of high school kids that pay attention to this podcast. Maybe talk about a little bit of the process that you're going through is trying to find not only a hockey program that matches with you, but more importantly, a school that matches with you as you take the next steps of your life to maybe major in something and go to school for something specific. So maybe talk about that process that you're going through as a student athlete a little bit.
Yeah, I know like it started like definitely like throughout the summer, because I went to a lot of camps this past summer. And honestly, I think for a lot of kids, like especially girls hockey players, they definitely started earlier than I did. Like I wasn't completely sure that I wanted to or was going to be able to play college hockey, especially coming from a boys program. But like with his help and going to a lot of camps this summer, I started to get myself out there a lot more. And that was definitely the first step. And then kind of emailing coaches myself and him emailing them like on my behalf as well, and just kind of starting to get a little connected with them. And I think then like now as my season started, I had like 1 visit at a school, the coach that I really like, and then I plan to go see a couple more too. And I think just like staying in touch with them as the season goes on is definitely a big important part. But I know there's seasons going on too, so it's definitely. But the most difficult thing for me, I think, is going to be deciding like also like what coach wants me, but also like what school I would really be happy with, because like God forbid like I couldn't play hockey anymore for some reason, I would still need to like the school to be there. So I think that's going to be like the biggest decision for me. I've applied to like all the schools that I've been looking at for like hockey and stuff like that, and I intend to major in biochemistry, and I'm really like science stuff. So just a school that really like kind of supports like that what I want to do, I think. And definitely just the culture of like the school. Like I don't want to be in like the middle of nowhere. Like I said that from the beginning. Like I love like cities and stuff like that. I think it comes from being like from such a small town like Palmer, that I want to kind of go somewhere where it's a little bigger, a little more going on. So all the schools that I'm looking at for hockey, and even some that I applied to for not hockey, are all definitely a little more like in the mix of things. So I think just finding a combination of like location, academics, but then at the end of the day, like if the coach wants me to play there too, I think it's just going to be like kind of like a perfect puzzle piece that all has to match together.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's awesome to hear, and kind of knowing what you want to go to school for. So that obviously helps out decision as far as maybe what schools have those types of programs and which schools don't. Coach, how are you as far as kind of guiding your players as far as that's concerned about looking at schools? I mean, what's the advice that you give to, Morgan as she's kind of, navigating through this process now?
That's a great question. I think the main thing, Anthony, is you need to listen. You need to listen to your players. You can't basically put, square peg round hole. You can't push them onto, unrealistic goals or unrealistic colleges that that they wouldn't get into, or that they wouldn't, if they wanted to pursue the hockey avenue, you wouldn't push them into a school that you think that from a skill set perspective, it sets them up for failure. So, but I like to encourage all of my players, and I'm pretty actively involved too, hands-on. Just not only for the seniors, but even some of the underclassmen that are going to be going through that process. You get to know different college coaches, different prep school coaches, and you build that network. And they remember. I have coaches that I've worked with over the years where I placed boys that weren't even on my team, and they trusted me to keep an eye on players for instance, on the North Shore. And there was one coach that we had a success rate of 6 players. I think I teed up to him, and all 6 went on to play at a high level after they played for him at prep school. So it's all about nurturing and encouragement and positive reinforcement. And then also, just life lessons too. Growing up in Saugus, I know the path and the journey that I took, and I just, sometimes you tweak things, and you can offer words of wisdom and words of advice as well.
No, that's great. And as a coach, like I totally understand everything you just said, as far as like just from the very beginning of listening. I think you can't drive a kid to go to a certain place because every school's telling you everything you want to hear and how you're going to be the cornerstone of this, and we're going to use you this way. And, they say that every year. That's the spiel, so it is really, a lot of it is, how does the school fit me outside of there? Morgan, you mentioned it. Who knows? I get injured. Now all of a sudden I need something to fall back on, and oh, this school doesn't even have something that I like. I just came here to play hockey. That's, it's mature to kind of keep all of those thoughts in your head as far as making that decision goes. So that's great. So we'll jump into like another fun part here. I mean, hockey. And I know, hockey over the last 10, 15 years has changed to a sport that is played year round, every single season of the year. But when the season ends, your high school season ends, how much time are you taking off from hockey? What are some things you might be doing? Like, coach, do you coach anything else? Or, Morgan, do you play any other sports? I mean, or do you just kind of get away from it and say, I take a certain amount of time and then I'll come back to it later on? Whoever wants to start on that.
When I went to Palmer, I played like soccer and softball. So like in the fall, I'd play soccer, then hockey in the winter, softball in the spring. And then when I went to Pope Francis, I decided to not play soccer, but I decided to still play softball. So kind of definitely once hockey's over, I got a good like couple weeks kind of just to relax from all the like constant go. And then softball is kind of just more of like a fun thing for me to do. Like it's not something that I like stress out about. Like we lose and I'm like, oh, whatever. Like it's not like I'm definitely hockey. I'm very like involved, like emotionally connected to it. But softball, I've played it for like most of my life, but it's just like a fun thing for me to do. So that definitely is a little more like lighthearted. I don't play any hockey in the spring except for like just like I did a couple practices and stuff like that. And then a few like I did a lot of camps and tournaments in the summer last year. But obviously that's all gonna be different like going into college this year. But in the past, I just did a lot of camps and tournaments and stuff in the summer. And then in the fall, I would play soccer and club hockey. And then this past year, I just played club hockey and no soccer. So I think and then in the summer, I played a lot of hockey this summer. I think I played more than I like ever have in like my whole life, like in the summer. And I think it was just kind of really preparing for like getting myself out there for colleges the most. And like I said, like I think I was a lot of the girls, like when I would go to these camps and showcase and everything, they were like sophomores, freshmen, juniors. Like it was very rare that they were actually like going into senior year. Like a lot of these girls are like getting it from the get. So I felt like a little behind the ball sometimes because I played for a boys team for so long. And then once I started talking to coaches, I kind of realized like that doesn't really matter like in the grand scheme of things. But I think definitely that like time off also balanced like with can keep playing is definitely very important because of how go the season is.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I was just gonna say that's you. You're like, oh, I only do this and this and this, and I've played a lot of that. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, so you don't stop ever. Okay. Coach, what about you? I know for me, like besides some clinic or maybe some education, I probably spent like 2 or 3 months away before I even thought about jumping back into it. I love asking coaches this question because I'm always curious how each coach is from sport to sport.
That's a great question. This year, same thing. Same answer as Morgan. I maybe took a week off, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Next year, I may do things a little differently, But
Yeah.
I also have a daughter, so we keep active with different camps, and a lot of times too. I had Morgan and a couple other players helping out with various camps, and then also going to different rinks, talking to different college coaches. Morgan and some of our other players played in various tournaments, so I'd be attending those tournaments, and I would also do clinics. A few of ex-Pope Francis boys players asked me to train them. So I took on another role this summer. So I trained a few of ex-Pope Francis players that now play college hockey. So we did that 1 or 2 nights a week. So in the grand scheme of things, it was the middle of summer, and I looked, and I was going 4 nights a week. So this summer there was no breaks. Morgan always she's got the saying, all gas, no breaks, and
Yeah.
that's what it pretty much was
yeah.
for us both this summer. So
That's so funny. One of the restaurants or spots that we work with plays Chini's. That's the guy's famous saying, all gas, no brakes. Like he says it on his social media all the time. So it just made me smirk when you said that, because we love him. We think he's great. So, but yeah, so no, and I used to be like that. I used to be kind of nonstop doing it. But you hear some coaches who, take a certain amount of family time off or going away, or just kind of like unwinding a little bit as far as just before they start thinking about it. And, for me, as I got later in my coaching career, it seems like you're the opposite. You're going even more and more and more. I definitely felt how important that was to have a little bit of time away to be able to kind of re-energize the batteries.
actually, I'll interrupt. I did take a week off. I went down we have a family place down in Naples, Florida. So that's the one place where I actually put down the cell phone and I can decompress. So we did do that this past spring, but that was short-lived. So it was just, you get back and you're back in the swing of things. So.
Well, then you learn how to appreciate that time more too, right? Like you're just like, when you have that week, you're just like looking forward to it. And when you're in it, you're just like, I'm doing nothing. I'm doing whatever I want, and that's it. I don't have to worry about anything else. So I get that. I do. When you do take that time off, you appreciate it so much more. You really do. So before we jump into like kind of the end of the show here, I want to ask you at least both of you one last question. And, like I said, our audience is a lot of high school coaches out there, especially in the Twitter world, and athletes. And being able to kind of now start doing this a little bit more on our podcast of having student athletes on with their coaches, I feel like it's important because it gets a whole perspective of a program, especially some that might be really successful, some that might be struggling, or some that might be kind of having some, just inconsistencies a little bit. It's always good to hear in season how it's going, and how the player and the coach vibe. And I can just tell, just talking to you two, you're on the same page. And I think when coaching and leadership's on the same page, then that's a recipe that's going to be pretty successful and lead you into a run, when it comes to state tournament time. So, I love that. So the other aspect of this is I want you to address the audience that we have out here. Morgan, I'll start with you. What would be your advice to someone, because now you're in a program with girls that are freshmen, that just came and joined the program this year. So you have some, 8th grade girls that are ready to join and play at that high school level next year, and you're not going to be in that program anymore. What would be your advice to just girls out there in general that are ready to take that step into high school hockey? And if they want to play at that next level, what's the type of work and commitment that they got to really put into it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing the piece of advice that I would give is not to be too hard on yourself, because I think when I stepped into playing girls hockey, because a lot of girls come from playing like boys clubs teams, because like out, especially in Western Mass more than Eastern Mass, there's not as many like girls opportunities. Like it's growing, but definitely it's a lot of like you're just in like a club, like, and you're either on a boys team or like a small girls team, and then you're like, oh my god, like I'm going to high school, and you think like you have to be this like amazing freshman, like if you're not playing it's a terrible thing. But that's not like the truth. Like when I played boys hockey, like 8th grade, 9th and 10th grade, like I barely saw the ice, and I was like okay, like it makes sense, like I thought that was okay. And I was like really really hard on myself though. And then when I went to girls hockey, I thought the same thing, like I need to be this crazy like show star player. And I think a lot of freshmen think that too, that if like they're not playing then they must be doing something wrong. But that's not the case at all. Like it definitely takes time. Like even when I went in as a junior, like ask coach, it took a lot of learning experience like going into like a leadership role like that. And I think just if as long as you realize like you're doing it for like fun in a way, like hockey is still meant to be fun. Like it's okay if like you're not out there every shift where like a senior or junior is. Like it will take time definitely in high school sports to kind of get where you are, and you just need to really focus on yourself, like not comparing yourself to other people and like what they're doing. Like if you focus on yourself, then it'll come like with time.
Awesome. That's a great answer. And coach, I'll flip the same type of question to you, just like a young coach who's looking to make that rise and become a head coach. What would be your advice to them, whether they're coaching girls or boys, as far as what they, what the commitment level's like and your advice to them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a key buzzword would be patience. A lot of, I mean, if you think of it now, this society, it's always instant gratification, with the cell phones, everything, especially a young coach coming in, they think they're going to come into a program and they immediately, I don't want to say expect success. To obtain success, it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it's a process, especially for a second year program. It's a big time commitment. You need to know your personnel. You need to get to know your student athletes. Listening is critical, and communication. That the old style way of coaching, you can extract different pieces from that, but nowadays that doesn't work. It's still all about discipline. It's all about creating a strong culture, but on the same token, you have to realize that at the end of the day, they're teenagers and they're student athletes as well. So they have a lot going on, outside of hockey. So I think the main thing is just to be flexible and to be a good listener. But on the same token, you need to establish the goals of your program, and you also need to establish what the culture is going to be right from the get-go.
Awesome. Well, and I think that's all important what both of you said, but especially the patience. It's an instant gratification world. If your internet's slow for like 5 seconds, you're like, what's going on? Right. Like, and it's like 5 seconds, so
Mhm.
I totally get it that people just want things to work and start working immediately. And there has to be patience for growth and there has to be patience with development because that's part of building a successful program. There's not many programs that can jump right out the gate and just compete. And when it happens, it's either a mix of having a lot of talent, having really good coaching, or both. So, it's not easy to obtain that. So I totally, yeah, it's great advice to coaches. We're gonna jump into our last fun little segment here. Okay, I'm gonna ask you 5 questions. I'm gonna get you guys to think it's about people on the team. So I might ask a question about somebody, and you got to give me an answer of who it is. Okay, all fun questions, all hockey related, so nothing that's crazy. All right. So first question I'll ask you, and keep it in your head until you both tell me you got it, and then I'll have you say it out loud. Okay. Hardest slap shot on the team.
I got it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
Ella.
Ella Rabadou.
Okay. So she is the hardest shot on the team. That's good to know.
Yes, in fact, she buzzed the tower last year. I was skating by the net in warm up and just missed me. So I could feel the wind, the velocity of the puck
Oh, yeah.
firsthand. She can fire the puck.
You get your own like Fulton Reed from the Mighty Ducks. I love it.
Yes.
That's great. All right, next question I have. Fastest skater on the team. Fastest skater on the team.
Got it.
Okay, go ahead. 1, 2, 3.
Lauren Crocker.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, you guys are both 2 for 2 here. This is great. You guys are on the same level. This is awesome. Okay. Best breakaway move. Best breakaway move.
Oh, I don't think we're too talented in the breakaways.
We better not get in any shootouts this year.
For sure.
I just jinxed
Breakaway
myself
move.
too.
Okay.
So
I think I have one from like a recent game where she had a break.
I have one.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
Caitlin Andrick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Lily. We call her Lily Ice Haze.
Oh yeah,
That's her nickname.
one thing we didn't talk about was Coach's nicknames. He has nicknames for every single one of us on the team. I don't think there's one person that he calls by our real name. Like he calls me Sparky more than I think I've ever heard him call me like Mo or Morgan this season. And he calls like Lauren Croc. He calls Lily Ice. He calls Mia Smash. Like there's just literally all different names for every single person. I think it's funny. But
And you remember them all pretty consistently?
oh yeah, especially the ones he says
Unreal.
like, especially the ones he says like all the time. Like, oh, it's really fun. And like what do you call Grace?
Sandy.
Oh, Sandy, yeah. Her last name Sands. He calls her Sandy. But a lot of them are like no one else calls them these nicknames. It's just his thing. It's so funny.
It's
Oh,
a
I wish I knew
Boston
that.
thing,
It's
Anthony.
definitely like a very like I remember one of our first games, like in like his pregame speech, he like went around and like listed all of our nicknames that were gonna be for like the season, like all the ones he hadn't given us nicknames yet. It was definitely a very funny first like game, like in our first scrimmage. But anyways,
The
I
freshmen
love it.
were all like, who's this crazy
Yeah.
coach?
Well, that's funny. You just mentioned freshman because my next question, it could be a freshman or sophomore or somebody, but best maybe young talent or most improved young talent you have on your team thus far.
Got it.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go ahead.
Sarah Tatro.
I'm gonna go too. Sarah Tatro and Caitlin Ondrick. Caitlin's a new player that came into our program. Even though she's not a freshman, she's a sophomore transfer from Williston, Northampton, which is a pretty good prep school program for girls. So we're fortunate to have her, Sarah. Also, we have a whole slew of freshmen. We have Giada Musa. We have Cameron Rogowski. We have Ava Saunders, Emily Griggs, Caitlin Griffin. So again, the pool
Could be
of
all the above. It could be all.
yeah. And we this year we carried 25 varsity players with the intent of developing these younger players just so they can be around, see the process, be involved with practices. Unfortunately, we can't dress them all at every game or at one time, but they get to be around the process, and throughout the course of the year, things happen. So we tell them that they always have to be ready, always have to be cognizant of what's going on and watching.
Yeah. Awesome. And that's great. It's a way to build them into the program. Like you said, just seeing things and hearing things. It's not next year that they have to learn language or terminology. It's more about just kind of getting better as a skill on the ice.
I have one more too. I forgot. I want to make sure that I don't leave anybody out.
Yeah.
Felix Gokul.
yeah.
She's our goal. She's one of our goalies. She can splits time with our senior goalie, and she's been in a few games and is played admirably. She's a fierce competitor. She's only probably about 5'2".
Not even.
Not even.
I'm like, she's like shorter than me.
Going up against girls with hard shots, and she stands right in there. And last week, for instance, we played a top-notch team that was undefeated, Algonquin. She faced like 30 shots and lost 2-1, on two.
Yeah, she that was like her first kind of like premier like starting, because our senior goalie kind of started the other games, and she just really showed herself in practice, and coach decided to start her that game and play her. And she I think she kept us in the game. Like sometimes when our team was like slacking against Algonquin, she was like spinning on her head. Like she had an amazing game. And I think as a freshman, that as a goalie, it's really easy to be hard on yourself, but she really just holds her own in that.
Yeah, it's like ice water in her veins, it seems like, which is great to be, especially as a goalie, So and then the last question I was going to ask you is just overall biggest just maniac on the team. We'll take lay in front of a slap shot, go in the corner and dig out a puck, someone who just doesn't care and puts it all on the line all the time. All right, 1, 2, 3, go ahead.
Eleanor.
I'm gonna go with Morgan. She's a fierce competitor. She's for being 5 feet tall, she's one of the toughest pound for pound players that I've ever coached, hands down.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Well, listen, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, the reason I said Eleanor is you didn't really hear us say her name very often. I think she's one of the quietest people on our team. She's definitely very not large personality in the locker room, but on the ice, I think she's blocked more shots than any single person on our team, and she is literally her feet are moving a mile a minute, every second. I think she works so hard on the ice. So I wanted to shout out Eleanor on that one.
Yeah, listen, no, this is great. And and we've done such a great job of highlighting coaches over the last year and a half that, we really want to start highlighting high school athletes as well, because we feel like it's a pretty important process in building a program. Yep. There's leadership from a top that builds the program, but then there's leadership within as far as the student athletes go to make sure that coach's message is getting loud and clear. said to, their teammates. And so it's nice to see that you guys seem like it's a great combination, a great program there that has fun, plays hard, and, does things the right way. So it was my honor to have you guys on here today to talk more about your program and in your future. And Morgan, I wish you luck for the rest of your season, and obviously that next step for you playing collegiately. And coach, I know there's been a lot of game cancellations this year with COVID, and just getting that consistency of knowing you're going to have a game every day. I can't wait for that to happen for you at some point. But this is what we're about here. And, we're on different parts of the state, opposite sides of the state. And it's nice to be able to kind of hear about programs that are in Western Mass that I don't typically get to really know about or hear about, or honestly would have known of your existence had we not been able to get and put in touch with one another. So this is awesome. And again, spread the word out there in Western Mass. I love to hear what's going on out there, and really highlight some student athletes and some great coaches and programs. So appreciate it so much, guys. I really do.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for your time. We really appreciate this, getting the visibility and some exposure for our program.
Yeah, absolutely. So from Beyond Podcast, I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis. We have Coach Connors here, and Morgan, team captain. Till next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.